Welcome back to beautiful Ohio winter.
Yes.
35 and raining.
This is just classic Ohio winter.
Today, this is classic Ohio winter. Today we are, we actually thought about doing this video last year, but last year was really like our only first or second full season of winter backpacking. So we've done a couple more winter trips, but today we were talking.
We're getting better.
We're getting better at it, and we are finally gonna do a tips and tricks for winter backpacking.
Yeah, and this is what we've learned and what other people have passed on to us.
We're gonna kind of, I might do this a little rapid fire. You know, usually we do like 5 things or something, but we're just gonna throw them at you.
You're just gonna throw them out.
And some of these things are probably gonna be pretty obvious, but nevertheless, they're things that helped us and need to be said.
Yeah.
So the first thing I learned is you want to do a full gear test of everything before you go out there.
Well, yeah, and our gear testing, of course, was like smaller trips and just testing out things in different temperatures, and so I think that's helped dial it in exactly what we need.
Yeah. Another tip, and this is kind of specific to the Midwest where our winters suck, but like when we go on winter trips now, we have to plan for snow, rain, freezing rain, so you have to bring a variety of gear
and
for a variety
60
of
degrees
stuff. And 60 degrees versus like if you're winter backpacking in somewhere like Colorado or somewhere where you know what it's going to be like. In the Midwest, things can change drastically, and the last thing you want to do is be dealing with being wet or something like that when it's in the winter. So just bring gear. I mean, you're gonna bring 2 to 3 times more clothes and gear, more clothes in the winter than you will on any other trip.
Yep. All right, next tip, and this one I've learned from experience is, and this sounds very stupid, but it makes sense. Have completely separate clothes available at camp.
Yes.
And warm clothes rather than what you were hiking in all day.
Yes.
Because the stuff you hike in all day will get wet, it will get gross, and you just don't want to rely on that. And so like having redundancy, especially like gloves and hat, because you'll sweat in your hat if you have to wear it all day. Your gloves will get wet from random stuff all day. So having completely separate dry stuff, which sounds logical, but a lot of times people don't do that.
And I'm going to piggyback off of that comment, but one thing, you know, we've learned to do, which is a lot different than our normal backpacking, is we hike much slower in the winter so we don't sweat
as much. We try and mitigate any sort of sweating during the day. That's something we've learned over time because, like Andy said, you cannot be wet in the winter. You will die. Here are some smaller kind of tips. So one, this is kind of obvious. If you're in a hammock system, use a top cover. I'm very pro top cover. I know you're top cover. It'll give you 5 to 10 degrees. Use a top cover if you can. It makes a noticeable difference.
Makes a noticeable difference. Another thing, if you're going somewhere in the snow, maybe think about some snow stakes. One thing I've had to deal with in the winter is the ground is frozen. Getting stakes into the ground is hard enough. Luckily, if you're going somewhere with snow, you can mat that down and use snow stakes.
Yeah.
But stakes are just, the ground is much more of a pain in the winter.
MSR groundhogs.
Yeah.
Just get those.
Another small little tip, this is kind of obvious, but set up in the sun.
Yeah, it really, if
you can.
It really kind of sucks when you have to set up in the dark, and especially like obviously if you have daylight, you can kind of tweak your stuff and make sure your underquilt's on correctly, and it just gives you a little bit more flexibility to get comfortable quicker. And so, I mean,
it's warmer too. It's going to be warmer when the sun's out.
So that means it gets darker a lot sooner in the winter, so like you have naturally shorter days, so you're gonna have to get to camp earlier.
We did a video a while back about Widowmakers, and one thing I learned while kind of doing some prep work for that video is actually Widowmakers can be more likely in the winter when there's snowpack and ice on the trees.
Yeah, just from like the weight and the freezing and the thawing.
Right, much more weight and the freeze thawing. You can tend to get more Widowmakers in the winter. Now, the other thing about winter backpacking is, and this is kind of a pro and a con, but it's dead quiet. So you might hear Widowmakers better in the winter, but another tip is it's gonna be dead quiet, like dead quiet. So like for me, I don't like that when I sleep. So I bring like I don't know, I listen to music or bring like a white noise thing to listen to or something like that, but it's gonna be super silent in the winter, and you'll hear stuff and you'll think it's bears and it's mice.
Yeah. So food, like I feel like you need more food in the winter because
You do.
your body's working harder to stay warm. You're burning more calories in a lot of cases. So like, you know, big hot meals make a huge difference, and especially like something like really easy to do, like a boiling bag. But it's just it's you know, like, give the body what it needs.
Yeah, and when you eat food, your body produces heat.
Yep.
By dealing with metabolizing
Digestion.
and using that food. So a good strategy is eat a really big hot meal before you go to bed. Yeah. This is another kind of useful tip, not necessarily specific to winter, but actually something our boy Frozen told me. Shout out to Frozen. And it does work. If you're looking to dry stuff, so if you're hiking during the day and you have wet socks or something, it's kind of gross, but if you shove all the wet stuff in your foot box, your body heat will dry it overnight, and it does work.
Yeah, I mean, it helps. It doesn't dry it completely in a lot of cases.
It dries it enough to use it though the next day.
Yep. And so there's a huge debate around footwear in the winter. And so, like, first of all, like, I mean, we're big proponents of like a waterproof boot, and that's certainly not the only option. Just know, like, if you're gonna be using trail runners or something that's meant to like breathe and meant to like drain water and not have as much coverage over your foot, like, you need to have a solid option at camp to keep your feet warm. So like, your feet are gonna get wet. Your feet are gonna get wet. So if you're using trail runners, make sure you have something to get into at camp that's warm, so that you don't have to sit around camp all day and freeze. And then additionally, your shoes will freeze at night.
And we'll check out our last Dolly Sods video. You can see that screwing me.
Yep, stuff those water bottles in there.
Yeah, so make sure when you go to sleep, your shoes are in a position or orientation where they're like open, so when they do freeze, you can get them back on.
Yep.
Here's a good winter tip: chapstick, and lots of it.
That dry wind.
Yeah, seriously, so much chapstick. For those of you with an alcohol stove, keep some alcohol if you can in a little thing on your person.
Yeah, I mean, just watch what Shug does.
Yeah, we learned that from him. And then additionally, you know, we bring a lot of electronics. All electronics and wet water filters, they all need to be on your body heat for the most part. I mean, you don't have to with electronics, but your electronics will function much better if they don't freeze.
Yeah.
So one thing I'll do is, if I don't want to carry, like, have stuff in my pockets, I'll just put it in a bag and put it in my foot box.
Yeah.
And that works really well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky enough to backpack in the winter where there's running water, you'll have to keep, if you're using like a squeeze filter, you're gonna have to keep that warm at night. Otherwise, you could get away with maybe some drops or like some type of chemical treatment. Otherwise, you're melting snow.
Andy and I are like constantly evolving our winter setups, and one thing I've been doing on every trip, I know he does, is I bring more clothes than I think I need, and I always end up needing them.
Yeah, my biggest lesson learned from winter backpacking is clothing. And like, I have found like many a times every single piece of clothing that I will bring, I will use. And I have found such a big benefit in having completely separate clothes for your camp experience, and then also like having a fresh pair of socks every single day that are dry.
Yeah.
And so like overdo it on the clothes at first, and then you can rein it back as you get some experience. But just, you know, separate clothes and lots of them.
And if you've been watching our videos, you know we go full down suits now.
Yeah. Down
booties, down pants, down jackets, down hats potentially.
Yeah, and that's
full down.
And that has actually saved some weight in the long run, because I don't need as many layers now because of that, because it's so warm. But just having a completely dry set of clothing for camp, including footwear, makes a world of difference.
Down booties, there's a reason they're popular.
Yeah.
So that's really just high level, like a lot of our tips we've learned over the years. One thing.
Yeah, people have helped us out with this. So like a lot of these aren't new ideas.
No, none of them are. But I will say that, you know, don't be scared of winter backpacking. No. I have learned to really enjoy it now. Like, we don't hike as much in the winter. There's other things we do.
We do low mileage. We want a nice camp experience.
Have a big fire. That's another tip.
Yeah.
You always want a fire.
A lot of fire starters.
But don't be afraid of winter backpacking, but do know that it is highly technical. Your pack will weigh more.
Yep.
It's a totally different gear mindset, and you just want to be comfortable out there.
Yeah.
And it's not like summer. Like if you just, like, it's more dangerous in the winter. So,
Sure.
But don't be afraid of it. You know, we've got some other videos talking about our winter gear setups or why we think winter might be better.
Yeah.
Check those out. But I think that's all we got.
Okay, cool.
We'll see everybody on the next one.
See ya.